What is the origin of evil, people doing evil things? Well, let me think about that by going back 2,000 years or so to a palace in Jerusalem. And a king there is just getting up, getting out of bed, putting his robes on maybe, getting his breakfast, and the day opens up before him. He's not planning on doing anything bad. There's nothing bad in his mind at all. And then he gets a kind of call from one of his servants, said, "There's some people to see you, Your Majesty. There are these wise men from the east." And then he says, "Oh, very well," and I guess he, puts his robes on and goes out to meet these visitors. And still, he's not planning anything bad at all. That's not in his heart. And then these wise men said, "Oh, sir, we've seen analysing the prophecies and the stars. We see there is a new king to be born in Bethlehem." Oh, really? And then in the second chapter of Matthew, we see the kind of outworking of this disastrous position from Herod's perspective, that he must get rid of this threat to his authority. So the Magi go off and worship in Bethlehem. They don't go back. Herod realizes he's got to try and kill this baby, doesn't know who it is, so he kind of orders the killing of all the infants in Bethlehem. So it's a horrendous act. But it doesn't start with him planning it. Why does he do it? He does it because he likes being the king. He likes the position as it is, the current position where he's a very wealthy man who can tell people what to do, very powerful, he's the top dog. He likes that. And that's what he wants to keep. And if someone threatens it, he will stop them. He's not planning evil to start with, but to preserve the other thing, he's very happy to do something evil. If you look at Vladimir Putin today, I don't think at the start of his presidency of Russia, I don't think even in February 2022, he thought, I'm going to initiate the killing of hundreds of thousands of people, Ukrainians and Russians. I think he thought, no, I want Russia to be a great country, and of course this myth of an independent Ukraine is nothing, and of course they'll want to be ruled by me in a great motherland of Russia. And actually they didn't. The Ukrainians had a different way of governing, and they liked the leader they had, the system of government they had, the freedoms they had, the wealth they had, and they didn't want to be ruled by him. But he wasn't able to cope with that, so he would then follow through and ratchet up until he's doing something horrendous. It doesn't start with him trying to kill, but it ends with him doing evil. In Iran, I don't think the theocracy 3 months ago wanted to imprison and kill women, but once women started demanding freedoms to have their hair uncovered, freedoms to live the lives they wanted to do, they weren't prepared for that to happen because they liked the status quo, they liked the power they had. And so then they would come to do evil things. They don't get up in the morning thinking, I want to be an evil person, but they are happy to let evil triumph. And this is something you see in international stages, but I think you can see it much more personally as well. And that's maybe the more acute one for us to watch out for in ourselves. A difficult one to talk about, but there's a parishioner who died now, and she was a wonderful lady in many ways, lived a very independent life and proud life. But she reached that point where wasn't able to do the things she wanted to do because her had a few falls and her back did in. And then she started asking her friends to kind of do her bed linen, change the sheets, because changing the sheets is actually quite hard on your back. And I think if you ask your friends to do that once, a friend will say fine. But she just kept asking, and then it was like, do the shopping as well, do the laundry, until what she was asking of her friends was not that they be friends, but essentially they be servants for her. It wasn't kind, the demands she placed on them. But she didn't want to accept that independent living wasn't going to be possible for her then. There were other options, there's like sheltered accommodation, residential housing, but she didn't want to accept that. In the end, but she had to, and she quite enjoyed it. But for a while she acted badly. Not that she ever woke up thinking she was going to act badly. She didn't set out to act badly, but she made unfair demands on people who were her friends. And again, it comes from a position, you know, much, much weaker than the other ones we've talked to, but a refusal to accept things as they are. And I think sometimes we mistake evil as if evil comes out of kind of monsters. People behave in a monstrous way. And you know, very occasionally that's the case. But more often it's ordinary people who often have some kind of privilege. Could be very low-level privilege, and this is just a privilege to live independently, which is a kind of basic thing. But refusing to let go when the world is not as they would have it to be. Refusing to accept the world as it is. And in trying to do that, they kind of impose a kind of force, a kind of violence, a kind of demandingness to make it that way. And that's not fair. And we can see it on the international stage. We see it in Herod, these kind of obvious arch-villains. But I think it's something we have to be very aware of for ourselves in certain things. When are we imposing our will on people who don't deserve our will to be imposed on them? And those questions are very acute sometimes and difficult to read, but we must be on guard against them, because actually sometimes that's how even we, even us, can do bad things.